Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your AEW Worlds End 2025 instant analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here just a few hours after AEW Worlds End went off the air to break down the final pay-per-view premium live event in professional wrestling this year. That's right, the Silver King will be discussing every single match on the card. We'll be reviewing them, giving you a grade, and we will break down the entirety of AEW World's End before this show is out. But the show is not out yet. It is just getting in. And on our way in, I need to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And of course, you can vote in pre and post show polls surrounding pay-per-views just like this one. Your grades will factor into the final segment on today's episode, where we go over our pre-show expectation grades and our final grades for AEW World's End. We're not going to really waste any time getting into this. I did want to give everyone a little bit of an update, though, in terms of the Getting Over schedule and timing of shows both now and into the future. You will notice, I believe this is the second straight AEW pay-per-view that our instant analysis, as we call it, is actually coming out Sunday morning as opposed to Saturday night as soon as the show goes off the air. That's happening for two reasons. The first, it's football season. There's a bunch of other sports on. The Silver King has a full-time job and a lot of other responsibilities. The second is that these shows don't end until after midnight Eastern. And by the time all the information is gathered, I'm able to jot down my notes, think things through, ensure that I have together the show I want to present to you. It is generally even later than that. And it's gotten to a point where to start recording a show at, let's say, 12:45 a.m. Eastern, and then publish it at like 3 a.m. by the time I get everything done, it's just not good for me. It's not good for my sleep, my health, my energy for the next day. Obviously, Sunday is a huge football Sunday. I have work to do. So I've just had to make some decisions. And when it comes to the AEW shows, which are so long and end so late, it makes more sense for me to publish them on Sunday morning as opposed to what we do with the WWE and NXT shows, where we get them up pretty much by 1:30. You know, we're not recording until super late in the morning, or however you want to call it, early in the morning, however you want to term it. So that is going to be what we do during football season. The rest of the year, and I don't think AEW has another pay-per-view until March, which, thank heavens, we'll see. You know, it'll just be determined based on what else is going on, if we have the energy, and also how important the show itself is. Is there something that is major? Does someone debut? Is there a title change that was totally unexpected? In the case of World's End, there was a title change. It was not entirely unexpected. So, again, those will be some of the elements that we use to determine when this is going to go. And then in terms of our Getting Over schedule through the end of 2025 into 2026. I say that primarily because we have two special shows coming your way. The 2025 Getting Over Awards, aka the Meaties, and your 2025 Year in Review. The Silver King will have much further details on those for you this coming Tuesday on our WWE episode. I was originally going to attempt to get the 2025 Year in Review out on Monday. I don't believe that's going to be possible, but I am also going to warn everyone, we're going to truncate that show. I believe last year's went like 2.5 hours, and it was comprehensive as it was the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. But look, we do a lot of performance-enhancing audio for you, and I don't know that we need to get that deep into a year in review where we're going, 2.5 hours on a breakdown of things that already happened, but we will be comprehensive. I'll cut it a little bit shorter than usual. Nevertheless, that year in review episode and the 2025 Getting Over Awards, aka the Meaties, will be coming your way in the next 2 weeks. And make sure that you are following us on social media at Getting Overcast. That way you can vote in those Meaty Awards. So with that said, let's get into the AEW World's End instant analysis. And we're going to start immediately with the main event, as we always do. The AEW Championship, Samoa Joe defending against Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland, and MJF in a 4-way match. Swerve was dressed like, I believe, Green Lantern, I want to say. Hangman seemed to bust open his mouth or something on MJF's skull, doing an early moonsault. Swerve and Page did a counter sequence ending in a Swerve Deadeye, but Hangman answered with a buckshot lariat for a broken fall. They did a Tower of Doom into MJF, who was standing. Swerve flipped out of a muscle buster, catching MJF with a flatliner upon landing. Hangman avoided Heatseeker only to eat a slingshot cutter. The heels put in Salt of the Earth and Coquina Clutch, with MJF breaking both. House Call interrupted a 3-arm drop on a Coquina Clutch locked into MJF, who took a Deadeye minutes later. At that point, the Ops just ran out and got involved. Joe hit Page with a muscle buster for a false finish. That is not a move that should be kicked out of. Let me just be very clear about that. Swerve took out Powerhouse Hobbs and Katsuyori Shibata. They put hands on Prince Nana. Hangman got distracted by Hook, locked in Coquina Clutch by Joe. Swerve broke that with a Swerve Stomp. Then he powerbombed Joe off the ropes, but MJF pushed Swerve off the top rope. Hangman then took out MJF and hit 2 buckshot lariats on Joe, neither of which knocked him down. Again, ridiculous. He tried for a third. MJF prevented it by kicking out Page's leg. Then he hit Heatseeker on Joe for the 1-2-3 to regain the AEW Championship. I laughed out loud at this result purely because of what I said on the Ultimate Preview about this guy, MJF, being called a literal bigot. He was called a bigot on TV this week and a misogynist and all these other things. And then days later, he's being crowned AEW champion. Again, this is where oversight of promos needs to be handled by Tony Khan. Like, you have to think that through. You can call him a lot of things, a lot of negative words. You're a piece of shit. You're this, you're that, whatever. You don't call someone a bigot and then make them your main champion days later. Even though my eventual prediction on the Ultimate Preview was Joe retaining, and I am surprised he did not here, considering MJF just returned. MJF was clearly the other option. There was no way Hangman or Swerve were going to win the title here. And now it's obvious that Joe was purely a transitional champion buffer, so AEW didn't have to put MJF over Hangman. They wanted MJF to be champion. Joe also turned heel. He did all that stuff for a 1-month title reign, which is similarly funny. The positive is that MJF gets to crow about not only entering a multi-man and winning the title, but doing so in a gutsy, not cowardly fashion, which lived up to his promo when he returned. He is far more interesting with the championship. He dropped an F-bomb in a post-match promo into the camera, the third person to say F-U-C-K on the show. That aside, I liked the full circle moment of MJF winning the title at World's End from Joe after losing it to Joe on this show previously. The key is going to be how this reign goes. I do understand the annoyance that some fans have where this guy just disappeared for 3 months and has barely been there this year, yet he's champion as 2025 comes to a close. I get it. The match was strong. It started with signatures, and it really never moved off of that. There wasn't much flow to it other than everyone getting their shit in and then breaking stuff up. No real match story or anything like that. And the Ops just running in, then getting completely taken out by a single Swerve Stomp that had like 50% effectiveness because he hit each guy with 1 foot. I'm not even sure what happened to Hook. Like, where did he go? He got bounced off the ropes and that was it. I would have liked to have seen Page, Swerve, and MJF even all team up, take out the Ops, and then focus back on the match. That would have been much more sensible rather than just having them disappear in a finish. I have 4 stars A- written down, but as I just described it, I'm realizing this was way more of a B+ match, 3.75 stars. We learned as the show closed that MJF will actually be on Dynamite this Wednesday, which 99% of the time he would not be. So it was, again, kind of hysterical to me that they actually advertised, hey, our new world champion is going to be on television this week. Because, again, it's happened so many times where he does not show up to the next Dynamite. All right, let's move to the Continental Classic. Of the 6 matches on Collision, we discussed this on the Ultimate Preview. I explained that it was ridiculous to run that many matches to end a tournament on a taped Christmas show, and we had to do our preview before that even aired. 4 of them stood out as deserving around like 4 stars A- grades, plus or minus a quarter star. So I agree with the sentiment that Collision was a quality show from a wrestling perspective. None of them were must-watch, though. The only additional storyline element here was Kyle O'Reilly pumping up Roderick Strong to upset Claudio Castagnoli and officially join the conglomeration. That was well done. I don't believe Strong officially joined, but he did beat Claudio, and the wheels seem to be in motion for him to realize like these guys have his back. So the semifinals on World's End. The first one was Kazuchika Okada against Konosuke Takeshita. As expected, Takeshita took the face side, flashed accordingly with a nice brainbuster flip over tope on Hero early. Okada raked the eyes before an elbow drop. Takeshita landed his cradle tombstone press and wheelbarrow German suplex before countering Rainmaker into Raging Fire with no cover. They had a nice counter sequence before Takeshita countered Rainmaker with a Casadora cover. The referee counted despite only one shoulder being down the entire time. He followed with a Poison Rana and a pump knee, but Okada reached into the turnbuckle cover, grabbed a neon yellow screwdriver. The color is important. Okada ducked a Takeshita attempted Rainmaker. He swung the screwdriver at him right in the referee's face. Now, if this thing was black or gray or whatever, maybe it gets lost. Neon yellow. The referee ducks his head after seeing it to almost like you were showing something that your dog chewed up to him, and he sees it, and then he turns his head away. No, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. That's what this referee did when he saw a screwdriver attempting to hit Takeshita in the head. Then Okada hits Takeshita with the handle of the screwdriver, mind you, the weakest part of it. Okay. And the referee actively turns his entire body around so he doesn't see it, even though he was not positioned to turn his body around for any reason. There was no one ringside yelling at him. Nothing was happening. He just looked away from the action, which is the entire reason he is paid in kayfabe, is to watch the action, cover it, and call it straight down the middle. And then again, Okada got the fall with a screwdriver shot to the head. This was on its way to being an excellent match. It was absolutely ruined, not only by a bullshit finish, but a botched one at that. Blame goes to both the match producer, if there even was one, and the referee, because the concept and positioning was horribly flawed. Not only that, a screwdriver doesn't knock you out. It would be painful. It would piss you off if you got hit in the head with a screwdriver. It does not knock you out for a 3 count. That is just dumb. The work between these guys was obviously immense in parts because they're not just two of the best wrestlers in the world. They're two of the best wrestlers in AEW. My problem, I probably should have said that the other way. They're not just two of the best wrestlers in AEW. They're two of the best wrestlers in the world. But beyond that, my problem is that the action was just starting to meet expectations by the time it ended. If allowed a real finish another 10 minutes, this easily would have been in the A range, maybe higher. Disappointing that there was so much time spent on this story the last couple of months. One of my favorite parts of AEW TV recently. And they just did not follow through with a classic in their first meeting. I know they're going to fight multiple times. It's obvious. But you still should do a classic in the first. Okada Omega 1 was a 5-star match, and then it got better and better. And, some say the second one wasn't as good as the first. Okay, whatever. But they started with a 5-star match. Not like this, which was 3.75 stars B+. Very disappointing. So Okada advanced as the reigning Continental Champion, temporarily unified, and Takeshita exited with further reason to hate Okada and not really trust Don Callis, considering that was his weapon of choice, usually reserved for Kyle Fletcher. Now, if Takeshita does not pull himself out of the Don Callis family inside of 2 weeks, okay, maybe let's say a month, because it's the time of year he's going to be working New Japan. If he's not out of that faction inside of a month, I don't even know what AEW is doing with his character at this point. The second one was Jon Moxley against Fletcher. Mox sat Fletcher in a chair ringside, booting him in the face. Then Mox somehow allowed his leg to get caught between the steel steps and post, with Fletcher drop kicking it and subsequently working it. That told me Mox was winning. The knee would serve as an excuse in the final. That was my expectation. It also allowed him to work the face side of the match. Mox missed a stomp on the apron, eating a brainbuster on the hardest part of the ring with a really nice sales job on the back end. Fletcher followed with a last ride for a false finish, but when he put Mox in a single leg crab and bent back too far, Mox locked him in a bulldog choke. That got countered into an ankle lock for a rope break. Some fans chanted for a guy in Mox who spent the entire year terrorizing trying to kill babyfaces. On the ropes, Mox bit Fletcher in the face, following with what was supposed to be a full release avalanche cutthroat suplex. Instead, Fletcher landed squarely on his head and neck. The referee checked on him for 5 seconds and let the match continue. It was a gnarly bump. He is lucky he did not break his neck. Mox added a stomp before a counter sequence that included Mox kicking out at 1 and then a false finish after a brainbuster. Fletcher started checking the corners for the Callis screwdriver, which allowed Mox to hit Paradigm Shift and Death Rider for a pair of false finishes before ultimately knocking Fletcher out with a bulldog choke. Maybe he should be watching the product, this guy. Or Callis should have told him it was taken or put it back into the turnbuckle. I mean, he's the guy's manager and he's like not setting him up for success. Like, how does that make sense? Kyle Fletcher is the guy he's been putting over massively. Anyway, awesome match. Kicked the shit out of Takeshita Okada, which I absolutely did not expect. There was immense false finish spam, which was way overdone and protected Fletcher way too much for a guy that already lost matches in this tournament. Fletcher also did a terrible job basically winding up full strength just seconds after being knocked out cold. Like, he didn't sell it at all after the bell. Ruining it a bit for me was commentary literally saying, two of the greatest matches we've ever seen. I'm going to remember these two matches for the rest of my career, which is obviously the height of absurdity. I mean, what are we even doing here on commentary in AEW? But the bell-to-bell work and the in-ring storytelling was completely on point. This was a certified, unquestioned banger. 4.75 stars, A+. The match of the night by a mile. Nothing came close. Mox even chipped his tooth in the early going. Looked like he split it maybe. Powered through the rest of the match. The screwdriver thing needs to be addressed with anger from Fletcher and an explanation from Callis. Otherwise, he should probably turn on him along with Takeshita. We had Mox and Okada in the final. We were forced to sit through a Callis promo before this. Mox then positioned himself as an underdog, saying Okada would have to kill him. Started slow and methodical with Okada working the knee as expected. This went on for like 15 minutes, maybe longer, until Mox caught him with a gotch pile driver. A double twirl on a Rainmaker attempt led to a low blow the referee didn't see. Mox then kicked out of a Rainmaker, which I thought was the first time that had happened in AEW. If it's not the first, it's the second, but commentary did not sell that at all. Okada grabbed the belt, took an uppercut low blow from Mox when the referee turned his back. They exchanged Rainmaker and Paradigm Shift before Mox reversed a Rainmaker and hit another Paradigm Shift for a 1 count. Mox then came back with a stomp and Death Rider for the win, receiving a relative babyface ovation. For doing so, as again, he was the face side in the match. Death Riders ran in and swarmed him with hugs. Tony Schiavone, after the bell, filleted Mox, only for him to say the title didn't belong to him, but everyone in the Continental Classic and all the fans who support professional wrestling, because they are the hardest working professional wrestlers in the world. Everyone in AEW. He dropped an F-bomb. He said, there is no other organization in professional wrestling who does what AEW does and gives it 100% every single night.
Are you fucking kidding me?
This was the weakest of the 3 Continental Classic matches on the show. Not a surprise, considering both guys had already wrestled great bouts earlier, but I did figure it was going to eclipse both of those. Probably just a poor assumption on my part. I got the finals right, the winner wrong. Despite Mox being a 4-time world champion, him winning felt fresh. These guys put on a different final. It's borderline B+. I'll say 3.75 stars B+. The post-match promo was such an eye roll. Even if the goal is a face turn, which it seems like is what's happening, at least positioning Mox as a face. So if Death Riders turn on him, that he's clearly the face side and they're clearly the heels. Even if that's the goal, doing it with a stand-up for AEW promo. We're the greatest. WWE wrestlers don't give 100% compared to us. This is where the best wrestle. It is vomitacious. This is a guy who asphyxiated Bryan Danielson into retirement, tried to kill Darby Allin and Will Ospreay this year, months ago, tried to retire Kyle O'Reilly even more recently, despite taking the coward's way out against him. And then you have Danielson trying to explain how that is exactly what Mox has been saying all along, even if it's hard for him to swallow it because of the way he got retired. He just wants AEW to be where the best wrestle. Give your balls a tug, brud. Like, are you shitting me? Come on. This is the height of absurdity. Mox is now the first person to win the AEW men's singles triple crown, I guess, the AEW title, International, Continental. Of course, there's 2 additional men's singles titles in AEW, so what does that even mean, really? I wonder if this one is going to go in a briefcase for a year like we saw with the AEW title. I'm guessing not. This one he wants to proudly display for some reason. We do need to point out, this is the second time AEW's had a guy injure his leg in an early match and then beat a more full-strength, legitimate contender despite being hobbled to such a significant degree. I want to say the first time was MJF over Jay White, which was idiotic. That was way worse than the way this was handled, but now it's happened again with Mox and Okada. You also have Mox, who held this AEW title hostage for a year, like I just mentioned. Now he's crowned with the 3rd or 4th most important men's title. It would be like Roman Reigns going on a dominant run, dropping the WWE championship, and then a couple months later being proud of himself for winning the United States title because he did an open challenge and he won or something. Like, really? Sometimes context really is everything if you think about it. Before we get on with the rest of the show, I do need to tell you about NordVPN, because whether it's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, premium live events, or Netflix, or AEW pay-per-views, which you can get for far less money internationally. I am all in with NordVPN these days. It's easy to set up. It's a drastically better viewing experience. You get high quality streams and commercial-free shows. All you have to do is sign up at nordvpn.com/gettingover. Open the app, quick connect to another country like Canada or the United Kingdom. Open your app of choice and watch the show. NordVPN also allows you to get around online censorship or surveillance, protect your private data when web browsing, and avoid online threats. Plus, one account can be used on 10 devices. Get the best discount from NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/gettingover. Our link will give you 4 extra free months off the 2-year plan. And there is no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So improve your viewing, save money, browse safer online, and get the best discount for the best VPN at nordvpn.com/gettingover. We love having NordVPN as the official singular sponsor of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Plenty more matches to cover. Let's move to the Women's Championship. Chris Statlander defending against Jamie Hayter. There were a lot of exchange strikes and offensive moves in this. Hayter hit a missile dropkick off the announce table in a really nice-looking spot. She added another inside the ring. The challenger dominated offensively from there, but didn't have an impactful move for a while until hitting a fisherman superplex. Really nice twist on a classic move. Stat hit a package pile driver, which at the time was probably the 10th pile driver we saw on the show, and it was also the move of the match. After that, an avalanche Michinoku driver. That was an awesome spot. Unlike what happened in Mox Fletcher, Hayter seemed to get a more complete and detailed check by the referee after taking that move. Stat failed trying Haterade and got fully dumped on her head. She didn't get the same kind of check. Then she literally spit in Hayter's face, only to take her own Saturday Night Fever. Hayter countered a discus lariat with a regular one, only for Stat to immediately hit her finisher to retain the title. This was a great hard-hitting match. Nice to see a clean finish. There was a lot of BS and escape finishes on the show. Of course, Hayter would be the one taking the clean fall out of all people, because why should she be protected? I'm being sarcastic, of course. She was a legitimate contender here. Stat exited as a stronger champion. I did find it rather slow in parts. My interest wasn't exactly captured coming in. They did quite well from bell to bell. Unfortunately, being so late in the show, the crowd was exhausted and it struggled to hold their attention. 4 stars A-, and I'm also giving this 4 slabs of beef.
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Women's Tag Team Championships, Babes of Wrath defending against Mercedes Moné and Athena, laughed out loud when Moné was promoted for the match as being SI's Women's Wrestler of the Year. This company, man, it's unbelievable. The match was put in a really tough spot coming after both semifinals and a street fight. Willow Nightingale had a real nice hot tag. Athena impressed by basically doing a gut-wrench code breaker on her. I didn't know she had that kind of strength. Harley Cameron went on a nice run, hitting a double crossbody and an extremely stupid double crucifix bomb where the heels hugged each other for no reason whatsoever, just so she could do the move. The heels followed with a seesaw O-face, followed by a statement maker. Willow powered out for a Death Valley driver before the heels exchanged friendly fire. The heels then teamed up for a superplex powerbomb, with Athena powerbombing Mercedes, who immediately went on offense and did a gory bomb into Willow. Harley hit Crossroads only to eat Monet Maker. Nightingale and Monet countered each other's finishers, with Willow catching Mercedes in a pinning combination for the win. One of my favorite finishes, like literally directly leading into the 1-2-3, the move before it, of the entire show. I thought Willow and Mercedes were awesome there. So that should result in a TBS championship match, one would think, right? Because she beat her clean. Monet sold the depression after the bell. Athena was clearly angry at her. Mercedes later threw a fit backstage and told Willow through the camera, "I'm going to beat your effing ass." Unbleeped. This was, I think, the 3rd F word that was uttered during the show. Again, one every once in a while. Oh, it's cool. Someone really has that passion. You're spamming 3 or 4 of them. You're trying to be edgy, and it's not really working. And yes, Willow is getting the TBS title match on Dynamite. Real edgy with the F word. Right booking decision, because the tag champions are the inaugural title holders and remain super over. The match over-delivered to expectation. All 4 of them did well. Athena was again the most impressive of the bunch, as she was last time she was in a match like this. Harley has improved significantly. It's great to see. She's still really clunky in the ring, though. There was a lot of sloppiness here. And when Harley was there, it leveled down. 3.5 stars and a B. Tag Team Championship, FTR defending against Bang Bang Gang in a Chicago street fight. Austin Gunn took a kendo stick shot to the back of the head while inside a trash can. Yeah. Gunn then strapped a trash can lid to his back and did some pretty idiotic offense with it. Juice Robinson bladed from a belt shot of all things. At least it was deep into the match. FTR worked his knee with a chair, leading to a leaping stomp and an inverted figure 4. Gunn found a fire extinguisher, with which Robinson eventually used after Cash Wheeler defenestrated himself into a ringside table. Stokely took out the referee to prevent a pinfall on the Juices Loose. Stoke then got shoved off the apron, completely missing a setup table and careening into the announce table. I legitimately hope he's okay. The referee then delayed a count after Shatter Machine for no reason, just so Austin could run into the ring and break the fall. It took him like 2 seconds to start counting. It was crazy. Gunn then took 3 consecutive pile drivers. That way FTR could retain the titles. I thought there was a chance for Adam Copeland and Christian Cage to return after this, but nothing happened. These guys all worked hard. There were some cool spots. Overall, the heels completely dominated the faces, and Austin didn't work. Like the second half of the match, it was basically 2-on-1. The right winners were chosen, but needing to take 3 pile drivers just to lose a match when you're basically a nobody, you're Austin Gunn, it is absolutely ridiculous. And it's precisely the problem with the way AEW books matches. This went way too long, and subsequently it lost the crowd. It really does feel like the whole division is in a holding pattern until Cope and Cage return to take the titles off FTR. 3.25 stars B. Darby Allin fought Gabe Kidd. Kidd cut a heatless promo on the go-home collision, assuming Allin was still laid up in the hospital. The lights went out, and he appeared in the ring, rolling his eyes in his head like he was The Undertaker. So Gabe appropriately laughed at him because, yeah, he looked ridiculous. Darby pulled out a bat, swung and missed, and he said 6 words. Not a match deserving of this kind of stage. Darby has become rather ridiculous as a character, more so with each passing feud, and him basically just doing Sting's shtick now. It is so unoriginal, and it feels like he's losing what made him so unique. Kidd did a seesaw of Allin under the steel steps with his head popping some metal plate into the air. Looked really cool. And then he bladed into a crimson mask as per usual. They used steel chairs so Kidd could blade and Darby could bite open the wound as one does. He hit a missile dropkick through a seated Kidd who later wiped blood on his body, bit Darby's open wound, and then spat into the air. Darby bit him back, that's 3, scratched his back, hit an avalanche code red plus coffin drop both inside and outside. Kidd is now gushing blood. It was pooling around his head ringside. Absolutely disgusting. 2 count. Scorpion death drop, Scorpion death lock. Darby got tired from holding it, so Kidd immediately stood up and started murking him with power moves and a pile driver. Bit his head again, that's 4. Darby then rolled him over for the 1-2-3. Holy shit, did I hate this match. Gore for the sake of gore, major moves with no covers, another escape finish rather than just putting someone over, no selling the effect of a submission after you screamed for 2 minutes straight. This was not a street fight or a stipulation match, yet both guys bled buckets. Can you make sense of that? Because I can't. I believe my grading has been pretty high and definitely fair for most of the matches on this show. I cannot get there for this. I wish I didn't even watch it. 3 stars B-. It really should be lower than that. Someone will probably give this like 4.5 stars or some bullshit. It was ridiculous. And then we had Mark Briscoe as part of the conglomeration with Tony Storm fighting the Death Riders in a mixed nuts mayhem match. I want you to understand, this match got put on a pay-per-view, developing entirely from a post-match Briscoe save and Storm getting back at Marina Shafir for booting her in the chest last week. The faces shook hands on Collision, and then Mark kissed Tony's hand, and boom, 8-person tag pay-per-view match booked with random partners and the Mixed Nuts Mayhem moniker because it's men and women. Get it? Mixed Nuts. This was a Mike Knox special. No tagging, people just doing shit. We didn't preview it because it was booked after our show, as I mentioned, but I'd have assumed the faces would win considering the comedy aspect and the more beatable losers on the Death Riders. Orange and Shafir did a spot with their hands in their pockets. The heels dominated for a while, kept wanting to hurt Storm, but the faces thwarted it time and again. There was a literal dance number with Orange and Tony spinning one another into opponents while dancing and dipping. It was silly fun. Storm beat up Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, total losers. Then Claudio took a tornado DDT from her, only to respond with a swing that was impressive because she's so light, so he just went all the way around really, really fast and really high. Strong then squared off with his real-life wife, Shafir, chopping her in the back. Garcia took Storm 0, loser. Then Yuta ate a hip attack from Storm and Jay Driller in the finish. Storm then kissed Mina Shirakawa, who wasn't even involved in the match. She ran out to the ring just so they could kiss. I didn't love large swaths of this, but there's no question a good time was had by all. The fans popped for it. Similar to how I felt about the Joe Hendry Miz match on SmackDown. Not for me. I'm glad others liked it. 3.25 stars and a B. It was also a dramatic shift in tone, going from bloodletting over a weak feud to goofy comedy with zero stakes that didn't follow any rules. Actually, I guess neither match followed any rules, so they had that in common. I do struggle to understand, by the way, how the Death Rider story was Mox being a loser coward, getting beaten and tapping out time and again, looking like he's going to get excommunicated from the faction by Pac primarily, or maybe Claudio Castagnoli, to now Mox being a tweener babyface who overcomes adversity while the rest of the heel faction is doing a mix of super serious work and then comedic wrestling with the two youngest guys who should be getting elevated from the faction, basically getting their asses kicked by every single week, this week by a woman. Oh, and they're still feuding with Darby and Conglomeration, even though those stories and those story points should have been ended multiple months ago. The Death Rider shit is just flooring to me. So that brings us to our grade segment of the show because we've broken down every single match. I did want to point out before we get into the grading that the first truly fresh move AEW has made from a TV production standpoint is using Renee Paquette as the equivalent of a sideline reporter. They need to alternate her role just a little bit. She only does pre-match setups. I would like to see a post-match interview, a post-match report, learning something that happened backstage in a prior match before the start of another match. But regardless, it's unique. It adds context for viewers, including those whom AEW hopes know history that don't actually storytell on shows. So overall, I like the way they're using Renee. Conversely, AEW had a bottom line of sorts during the Continental Classic matches that was so ridiculously thick and bold, it was distracting. I'm not sure who designed it, but yikes. Anyway, in terms of our expectation grades, I came in at an 87 out of 100, a B+. All of you are getting overheads. You had a chance to vote on Twitter. You came in 29% in the A range, 29% B+ to B, 32% B- to C+, 10% C or lower. That averaged out to an 86.4 out of 100 or a flat B. So that was your expectation. 87 for the Silver King, 86 from all of you. Now, I usually don't read listener comments and wrap-ups here on the Instant Analysis. I save it for our second look shows during the week. But Jorge Blanco, at Jorge Blanco, John D, sent in something that encapsulated how I felt about the show. I'm not going to quote him exactly, but the night-long story with the Continental Classic, it carried the entire show, and the Mox-Fletcher semifinal was easily the match of the night. The other two Continental Classic matches left a lot to be desired, and the rest of the show was different parts, great, good, and fair. Just in totality, nothing felt that must-see other than Mox and Fletcher. So if you're asking Silver King, should I have spent $50 on the show, 10 for the, HBO Max subscription and then 40 for the show or 50 with Amazon Prime in the United States, I would say no. Should I have spent, $20 or $30 with a, VPN situation and watch it overseas? I'd say, up to you. But the only match I would say you need to see coming out of this is Mox and Fletcher because it was done extremely well. Classic in-ring storytelling. But then you look at the rest of the card, there's a bunch of B+ and Bs, B-. When it comes to the matches themselves, there were two title changes. Those were nice. The Mox one was a bit of a surprise. I thought the women did well overall. As is the case, AEW should be running 2 fewer matches, and WWE should be running 2 more matches per pay-per-view. These shows do not need to go past midnight Eastern every month. It's ridiculous, and it would be nice to get one of them every now and then without people spilling blood all over the canvas just for shits and giggles. I think vintage Chris Vanini is right when he says we need to be more discerning with our final grades for shows. We need to be more comfortable going into the B range and even lower when appropriate. So I'm at an 86 out of 100, a B, slightly below my expectation, not by much. Really, the culprit is Okada and his 2 matches. I thought both of them would be A's and would make the show, way more entertaining as a whole. I also thought the AEW title match was going to be a banger with those 4 competitors. And it was just okay. I mean, it was good. It was entertaining. They did well. They wrestled well. But it was just signature and finisher spam. And I expected more than that from those 4 guys. And really from this company, which if you're going to, purport yourself as we're the best wrestle, it doesn't just mean a bunch of, finishers and signatures and false finishes. I want storytelling in my matches. I want long, drawn out, bouts like we got with Mox and Fletcher. That's why it was the best match on the entire show. So even the main event fell short for me. And it seems like all of you agreed in general that the show fell short because this may have been the most even split I've ever seen for a post-match poll. 23% A plus 2A, 26% A- to B plus, 24% B to B minus, and the shocking highest portion by 1%, 27% C plus or lower. That averaged out to an 85.89, obviously rounds up to an 86 B. So we were pretty much in the same zone in the pre-show, in the post-show. This was B+, B show. We landed at 86 across the board for AEW Worlds End. A solid finish for the year, not among AEW's best pay-per-views of 2025, but nevertheless entertaining in many parts, and ultimately that is what wrestling is all about. So, on our way out here of this instant analysis edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, allow me to tell you for the first time this episode,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us. We only have one sponsor per episode. It's super short. This is how we pay the bills, and we give you extra content for it. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments that we will discuss here on the program, and you can vote in those pre- and post-show polls. That's on Twitter and Blue Sky. On YouTube, when you subscribe over there, you can listen to full-length audio episodes and watch full-length video interviews across the board at Getting Overcast. And please remember,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Keep your eyes on our social media for an updated schedule over the next 2 weeks involving the 2025 year in review and the 2025 Getting Over Awards, aka the Meaties. And we will also share that schedule with you this Tuesday on our next episode covering all things WWE. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.